The Iron Man, Rodtang Jitmanon, is headed back to the United States after a successful trip last time out to Denver. He will be heading to Atlanta for 169, as we recently had confirmed. Welcome back to the channel, and we've got some more 1169 news. This card in Atlanta that's coming up on November 8th at the State Farm Arena is looking like the most stacked US card that One Championship have done to date. Of course, we had One Fight Night 10 last year, their debut US event in Broomfield, Colorado. That was a very, very good card. You had obviously Demetrius Johnson versus Adriano Moraes in the main event. And we have Denver coming up as well on September 6th, 1168. We will chat about that in a minute. And then Atlanta in November. And we have another title fight added to this card. Now, when I saw that Rodtang was going to be back in the United States, I assumed that this would be on 1168. That goes down in Denver at the Ball Arena. And currently, we're not really sure what's going to happen with that card because the main event was set to be Stamp Fairtex challenging Zhongjin Nan for the strawweight MMA World Championship. Stamp obviously looking to become a two-weight world champion in MMA. But it doesn't look like Stamp's going to be able to make that date because of her injury that forced her to withdraw from her title defense against Denise Zamboanga in June. So it's a little bit up in the air, I think, what's going to happen with this card. And so when I saw that Rodtang had been added, and would be fighting in the US, I assumed that it would be on that card to kind of bolster that one a little bit. Of course, you still have some great fights on there. Jonathan Haggerty versus Superlek was the pick of the bunch from the moment it was announced. But I do wonder whether, you know, as much as One Championship fans are going to be stoked to watch Haggerty and Superlek, and it's a huge striking fight, will it gather a whole lot of interest? I mean, I think One Championship going back to the US will gather interest anyway. But you know, an MMA fight in the main event is probably the best bet in terms of generating interest from the US fans, I would imagine. And we currently don't have that. And not to say, you know, not that I'm saying that Rodtang was going to compete in MMA by any stretch of imagination, but I think that, you know, Rodtang is certainly, you know, him and Stamp are the two biggest stars on the roster, you would say. So, and Rodtang's a big name, even in the US. So I expected him to be on the Denver card, but that is not what we are getting. Because as announced yesterday, we'll chat about the actual announcement in a minute. But Rodtang will be defending his flyweight Muay Thai World Championship against Jacob Smith in a rematch at the State Farm Arena. Now, of course, it's been a little while since Rodtang defended this title. He did successfully defend it against Joseph Laziri at One on Prime Video 4, I believe it was. I think that was the last time he defended the belt. You know, since then, obviously, he had the fight in Denver against Edgar Tabarez. That was a 3-round fight. He had a kickboxing bout against Jidu Yibu. He had the fight with Superlek, of course, that was a 3-round non-title. He had the kickboxing fight with Dennis Puric earlier this year. That was also a 3-round fight. That was in kickboxing. So it's been a while since he's defended this belt. So I didn't expect that to happen. I expected that Rodtang would be in another 3-rounder, like I said, on the Denver card. But that is not what we've got. We've got a 5-round title fight, which makes 4 title fights for this Atlanta card. 2 in Muay Thai and 2 in MMA. Of course, Anatoly Malakin versus Rugrug is your main event for the heavyweight title. The return of Christian Lee defending his lightweight title against Alibek Razulov, which, again, I've got videos on all of these fights on this channel, so you can go check those out for more information. And, of course, the trilogy fight, Tawanchai defending his featherweight Muay Thai belt against Joe Natwood, following their controversial bout in the main event of 1167 at the start of June. So we've got Rodtang versus Jacob Smith. Let me pull up the official announcement that came for this fight. Give me 2 seconds whilst we quickly pull this up. I want to make sure that we get this correct. So this is just loading. Why is it taking so long? These things happen. There you go. So it is on Sports Illustrated, I believe was where it was first announced by Justin Barrasso. Barrasso, apologies if I said that wrong. To say that Rodtang is returned to the United States. And like I said, that's the first bit that I saw. Rodtang returned to the United States. I assumed it was Denver. I was incorrect. It will be in Atlanta. Sports Illustrated, like I said. Rodtang, who turns 27. Well, he'll be 27 already by this point. One of the best strikers in the world. He will have a lot to prove in this bout against Smith. Stuff about the Puric fight, an unbelievable fight. And you know, we already recapped that fight, but an incredibly emotional Rodtang. after that. And this actually states, whilst his next opponent appeared to be Takeru Sagawa. This is what a lot of people assumed was going to be next. I know that One Championship were hoping to go back to Japan this year to do the Rodtang and Takeru fight that was supposed to happen in January. Of course, Rodtang was injured, had to withdraw. Superlex stepped in to fight Takeru in the main event and defend his flyweight kickboxing title instead. And I think that, plans changed, basically. I think the Rodtang and Takeru still would have gone ahead. I think that Stamp's injury changed things quite significantly in terms of the plans for the rest of the year. Of course, she was supposed to headline 1167 and then 1168. Possibility of her being in Atlanta as well, potentially. So it would have been a very busy end of the year for Stamp, and her injury has changed that completely. So I would still really want to see the Takeru fight. I hope we get that, potentially in January next year. I don't know, something like that. So as stated in this article, it will instead be a rematch against Smith. Rodtang won their first meeting 2 years ago by unanimous decision, which was Smith's promotional debut for one. And that is kind of the interesting point to get to here, is people's thoughts on this fight. Let me pull up the One Championship website real quick. Because this fight, to me, and not to discredit Jacob Smith, because he is, a good contender in this division. This isn't they haven't pulled someone out of nowhere. He has history, of course, with Rodtang, but whether he's earned a title shot, I think, is a little bit up in the air. Oh, I say up in the air. I don't think he has earned a title shot or a rematch with Rodtang just yet. I think if he had beaten Dennis Puric earlier this year, then you've got a very, very strong argument. I think he probably would have fought Rodtang at 1167 had he beaten Puric. Of course, Puric won that fight at One Fight Night 21 in April and then went on to go fight Rodtang in June. So very quick turnaround there for Dennis Puric. And it's just a bit... It definitely feels more like this is a fight to get Rodtang on the card. Of course, he's a big name, and I understand that. It was a little bit the same case at One Fight Night 10 last year in Colorado when he was on the card against Eka Tabarez. A little bit of a showcase fight for Rodtang, play the hits and get the fans off their seats and all that kind of stuff. And again, Jacob Smith is in and around this mix, but, coming off of a loss, he's already lost to Rodtang in the past as well. It doesn't really scream one that is going to get the One Championship fans super excited. I definitely think there will be US fans that maybe don't follow One super closely who will just be excited to see Rodtang, and that's fair enough. If I was going to spend money to go and see an event in the US from One Championship, I would want to see Rodtang as well, right? Like, he is, again, one of the two biggest stars in the promotion, if not probably the biggest in terms of just the social media presence of Rodtang. And you want to see him. And, this is a fight that he won pretty convincingly the first time around. I don't particularly think it will be a whole lot different, to be honest, either. So you're going to probably get another very, very good performance from Rodtang, just like we got at the First Bank Center last year at One Fight Night 10 against Eka Tabarez. Although I do think this is, maybe a little bit... It's tough. Is it a better matchup than the Tabarez one? Yeah, I think Jacob Smith is a better fighter than Eka Tabarez, but at the same time, he's coming off of a loss. And like I said, he's already been beaten by Rodtang once before. So it's an interesting one. Like I said, I think it will generate interest just because it's Rodtang, but it does feel a little bit more like it's going to generate interest because it's Rodtang on the card rather than this fight in particular. To me, like I said, there was a change of plans clearly at some point. And so we all know that the Rodtang and Takeru fight is the one. It's the one that everyone wants to see. You've obviously got Haggerty and Superlek booked for Denver, so there's no real possibility of having Rodtang fight either of those guys, which I think are probably the only other fights that are super compelling for Rodtang right now, unless you pulled someone from the Friday fight series, like when Superlek won and fought Kongthorani at Friday fights not that long ago before. Yeah, in June, right? So end of June. So maybe that's an option, but at the same time, those some of those guys from Friday fights are killers, and I can understand why they went with this one, because I think like I said, I think this will be a good performance from Rodtang. But Jacob Smith isn't going to back down from a fight either, so it should be a fun watch nonetheless. What do you guys make of this matchup? Does Rodtang being the fourth title fight for this card, add a whole lot of excitement for you personally. You know, if you were on the fence about buying a ticket, is this what would push you over? Let me know. I want to know all this stuff because I'm going to be watching regardless, of course. So let me know where you guys are at with this one. Are you excited to see the Iron Man back defending his flyweight Muay Thai title? Because it has been a long time for sure. And what do you want to see from Rodtang for the rest of this year or going into next year? Like I said, I think if he's fighting in November, January's probably a bit too soon if you did want to do the Takeru fight in Japan at the same time as it was supposed to happen last year. Of course, he could come through this Jacob Smith fight unscathed, but I'd say, you know, probably not. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But until then, I will catch you all soon. Thank you for checking out this video. Like I said, I've got videos up all about the other title fights that are announced for this card, so go check those out. But until next time, have a good one, and I'll see you soon.